Welcome to the Especially for Athletes podcast, where we explore essential principles that empower athletes to learn life's most valuable lessons through sports.
So just to all the youth watching this in high school, stop trying to be cool. Cool gets you nowhere. You'll look back in 10 years, if you've gone on trying to be cool, you'll look back and be like, man, I really put myself in a bad spot. So put down cool, bury it, put it in a nice little ditch, bury it, get rid of it, and just lead with kindness. That's what the world needs, and just lift other people up and be you. Own it. So just lead with kindness and forget the cool.
Dustin, that was Kyle Collinsworth, former BYU great and Mr. Triple-Double, still holds the NCAA record for triple-doubles.
Yeah.
Played in the NBA for a long time. But this concept of, in light of seeking to bless and not impress, that was his response to a question about that. Put down the cool and pick up kindness. And as I was reviewing that podcast he recorded with us a little while ago, I came across this article that was super interesting to me. And this guy wrote this article. His name is Mitch Prinstein, and he is a child psychologist. And he wrote this: Dear teenager, hey, I'm a child psychologist who studies popularity. For about 20 years now, I and so many other psychologists like me have researched why some kids are more popular than others and how popularity affects our lives when we grow up. Popularity is not what you think it is. Remember back in elementary school when kids ran around the playground and went to each other's houses to play? Some kids were everyone's favorites, and others had a hard time finding playmates. It may have seemed like popularity was an important thing even when you were as a young child, as young as 3 years old. That's true. There is one kind of popularity that even very young kids are tuned into. But that's not the same kind of popularity that everyone talks about in high school. Childhood popularity is referred to as likability. The kids who make others feel good and included and valued are the ones who are the most likable, and being likable leads to all kinds of benefits in life. It affects your relationships, friendships, your dating life, what kind of job you get, and how happy you are as an adult, and even how long you will live. But when you reach high school, everyone begins talking about who is most popular or cool, or who seems to have the most followers on Instagram or whatever. This is referred to as status popularity, and it's not the same as likability at all. In fact, in most high schools, the kids that are most popular, that is, having the highest status, actually aren't even very well liked. Among girls especially, the high status crowd is disliked by many of their peers. The reason why status is a big deal starting when kids are around age 11 or 12 has something to do with how your body starts to change in middle school. Scientific studies are now revealing that part of maturing affects how your brain responds to people around you. And right now, it is kind of supercharged to care about your social relationships. Specifically, adolescent brains start to become really tuned in to who is getting the most attention, who seems to be the most powerful, influential, and who everyone else wants to look at the most. That's fine, but it's important to understand that the kind of popularity that teens care about, the status kind, can actually be bad for you. You know how some of the high status kids are mean to others by being bullies or gossips, or making other people feel bad about themselves? That kind of behavior comes back to haunt them later. Research studies have been done to see what happens to the coolest kids in high school once they grow up, and the findings are not pretty. They are at much greater risk for being lonely, getting fired, having their boyfriends and girlfriends break up with them, and suffering from addictions. So, and this is his point that goes along with our spotlight, If you are one of those high status kids, make sure you are likable too. Be kind to others and spend as much time having really honest relationships with others as you do in maintaining your status and reputation. I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah.
When it went back to these kids, likability, popularity is sustainable. And those are kids who make others feel good, included, and valued, which made me, as you know, think of we go around and we actually teach. Don't just include kids. You make those around you feel valued. So I just want to unpack this for a few minutes here. I thought even reading that article was good enough for a podcast here, but I wanted to unpack it with your thoughts. You had Kyle Collinsworth saying, put down cool, pick up kindness. And then this child psychologist saying there's two kinds of popularity. There's likability popularity and there's status popularity. Status popularity, if that's what you're after, you might get it in high school, but it'll lead to bad things later. Likability popularity is sustaining and leads to all these wonderful outcomes in life. Super interesting concept. What are you thinking about it?
I thought that it was interesting how I think we come back. The cycle is when you're young, it's really young. It's just who you like being around, right? You talked about that. Elementary school, you don't really care how they dress or what they look like or how big a house is or how fancy a car that their dad drives or whatever, right? It's just your friend. And then you get into that adolescent stage where you get 11, 12 years old, and all of them probably through junior high and then into high school, where all who looks the best, who has the most money, whose car's the coolest, who's the prettiest, right? Whatever.
Even athletics.
Athletics, exactly. And it's status and it's symbols and names and recognition. All these things make you popular, which you talked about. But then you kind of work back out of that. And as you get older in life, I think you kind of go back to, well, I want to be around people I like being around. I don't care what you look like or how much you make or what you drive or are you likable? Like I could care less. And that's the regret that I think feel later in life about, gosh, man, I probably wouldn't have hung out maybe with this person 30 years ago when I was in high school. Look what I missed out on because they didn't have the status popularity, right? Mm-hmm. And I could have been friends with this person, but I was so caught up in all that other stuff that you just get in this, just this turbulent wave of, who I'm supposed to like and be with and not be with, and how many followers do I have, and who's at the party that I'm not at, and all of this stuff that you waste so much time. And then we get older and we think, and that's what we're trying to tell kids, look, be friends with lots of people. You're going to learn so much from so many people, and stop worrying so much about the status part of it, right? It's easy to say, it's harder to do. We preach it as much as we can to kids. And I think a lot of the kids we work with are doing it. I know they are, which is awesome. And the schools who let us run our program the way that it's meant to be run, that's why they keep coming back and will say that it has such an impact at their school, is because these kids have this, it's like this door opens to this other part of life that, well, wait a minute. I can be friends with somebody that's not status cool. And it's cool. And I enjoy being with them, and that's okay. Yeah, it's okay. It's encouraged. That's what we want you to do. It's those relationships are what life's about, And so I love it. It's putting down the cool. It's hard to get kids to do it, but I think if we were even to ask, it actually should be something we should do a survey on, Shad. We could ask thousands of these kids, who to think about the two, right? The people you like being with, are they necessarily the most popular at your school? And is the person that would be considered the most popular really the most likable? And are they the happiest, right? Like most of the people who are the most popular, look at it in Hollywood. You see it all the time in famous people who have everything apparently except happiness. They don't have that. And real friends.
Yep. And I look at this, I think that there is a certain fraction of high school kids. I don't want to paint everyone who's popular with one of these brushes. And I'm sure all of us are one of them at different times, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect. That's part of growing up. But I think there's some kids that are popular in a high school, especially I've seen among girls, which this study points out, that everyone is nice to them and everything like that because they're afraid of them turning their viciousness on them.
Yeah.
Now, as soon as that high school experience is over and that person loses the power they once had to impact in a school setting all of these kids, I think that's why it leads to loneliness, is all of a sudden no one wants anything to do with them.
We call that the sport light turns off.
Yeah.
No one cares anymore.
But could you imagine combining the two of these? That's what I was thinking as I read this.
Yeah.
Status popularity is going to come to athletes, and that's not a bad thing. What we're trying to teach athletes to do is to seek to bless people with that status instead of impress people with that status. I think if you're seeking to bless people, you're trying to help people feel, as this says, good, included, valued, and you have the status, that spotlight that we talk about. You're not interested in everyone being impressed with you. You're trying to help others feel good and included and valued. You're both going to have the status popularity, which we aren't encouraging popularity, it's just a reality, and likability. If you combine those two, you have a powerful impact on people's lives. Mm-hmm. And that's why we try to teach what we teach. Is our athletes, sometimes it's just because they love playing a sport and they're good at it, they are gifted status popularity. Now, what are you going to do with it? Yeah. Because if you do the gossiping, backbiting, bullying, intimidating with that, if you use your strength and popularity to push down instead of to lift up, people are going to resent you the rest of your life. But if you use it to help others feel good and included and valued and respected and seen, like we teach in our presentations, you could literally change people's life in high school, but they will remember you as someone who is kind and loving, and they will remember you the rest of your life for that. And as this says, it will help you in your friendships, your dating life, the kind of job you get, how happy you are as an adult, and even how long you live. So we're just out trying to extend people's lives. Any closing thoughts on this? I think it's so cool, just that status versus likability. But any closing thoughts?
My last point, Shad, would be, I assume it's mostly parents who listen to this. If there's kids, that's even better. But to the parents, that's exactly what we are trying to do. We're trying as hard as we can to help your child. The phrase I use a little bit lately is that this spotlight can burn you. It can get so bright that it literally burns people. It burns these kids. They can't handle it, and it ruins them. We're trying to help your son and your daughter understand that while they have this light on them, if they get too close to it and too caught up in it and too in love with it, too much about them, it'll burn them. And it'll burn them, and it'll leave a scar that is visible for the rest of their life. Because people, like you just said perfectly, will remember them for how they were when that light was on them. And in many cases, they don't give them a second chance to say, well, you're different in your 30s and your 40s and your 50s than you were in your teens. We all are. But we still remember what we remember, and impressions are what they are, and roots were set when you were, a jerk. And I can't trust you, right? No matter what, if you're different. So that's a real thing. And what we're trying to tell parents, Shad, is that has been exaggerated 100 times now by cell phones, cameras on every phone, and social media. Yep. And so what we think we understand, we don't get it as parents right now. We have no idea what it's like to be an athlete with status in 2025. It's completely different than it was in 1995 or 1985. We don't get it. We understand a small piece of what it's like, and the good that can come from it and the bad that can come from it. We're trying to say, look, yes, we talk about good, do good, seek to bless, not impress. It's all about helping others. But a major part of what we're trying to do for your son and daughter is to help them not fry themselves while they're under this light and carry around a scar with them for the rest of their lives that people are never going to let them, come out from or forgive them for in some cases. So that's the essence of what Eyes Up, Do the Work is, being aware of others, but also yourself, eyes up, and doing the work to help others, but also to help yourself, to have a better experience and to be spit out into the world, a better person that produces good in the world, doesn't take and take and take. Because like you said, when it's over, people want to be with people that are likable. They don't care how many touchdowns you scored when you're 40, right? Who cares now? So yeah, that's, and both what Collinsworth said there and what you read, or, put down the cool, and parents, we need to talk to our kids about it. And what does that mean? It's a great phrase, but again, we talked about this on a previous podcast. In real life action, what is that? Like, what does that mean? And that's not, by the way, that's not the job of the coach. Parents, it's your job. Your coach is not, don't say that that's the job of your coach, to teach your kids to do those things. That's your job as the parent. Don't pawn it off to the coach.
Yeah.
We need to teach our kids to be that way.
Yeah. To close, maybe Ryan White, who we both, we love her thinking, Olympic swimmer. Yeah. She took us to her mirror and had that saying on her mirror that I thought of as I read this. People may not remember what you say and do, but they will always remember the way you made them feel. Yeah. That's hard to get over if you've made someone feel alienated or stupid or put down. But if you made someone feel lifted, noticed, valued, and seen, they will remember you fondly for the rest of your life. When you run into them in Target in 30 years, they'll look at you and say, I'm so happy I ran into you. Yeah. And so I love this, man. Status, you're given status, popularity as an athlete. You need to be likable. And that comes from focusing on other people and helping them feel good about themselves. And so I just thought it was really cool that what we're trying to do, the literal crux of our message, has this psychological underpinning that will lead to these kids getting better jobs, being happier as an adult, better friendships, better dating life, even living longer. I thought, man, if we could just flip that switch in a kid's brain, they don't know all that will do for them. But hey, we're going to continue trying, and these parents and coaches are too. And so,
well,
great.
Right on, man. I love it. Good job. Eyes up, do the work.
Thank you for joining the Especially for Athletes podcast. To learn more about Especially for Athletes organization, get a copy of our book, The Sportlight, or to bring our program to your team, school, business, or organization, visit us at especiallyforathletes.org.